Hey there, fellow classic comic collectors. As always, I'm Scott Harris King, and again, this week I am doing a week's worth of episodes as part of a community spotlight on some of the other creators out there who are doing different contests and looking for subs and just putting out cool content. And I want to highlight some of those creators now. A lot of them are doing different contests where, in order to enter them, you are supposed to make videos. And so I thought, well, hey, I make videos. And today I wanted to highlight the channel of someone who has been supporting me all along, right from when I really started getting going, and that is the Greyman. Now, the Greyman is doing a cool contest where it's actually not just for him. In fact, it is a sort of a dual contest where he's going to be giving out some free comics to people when he reaches 1,500 subscribers. But he's also going to be sending out comics to people when another channel that he's affiliated with reaches 500 subscribers. And that channel belongs to Matilda. Now, I have linked both of them in the comments section below, so you can go to their channels and check out all of their material, and you can subscribe to them. And if you want to join the contest, you can do that yourself. For me personally, I'm doing this just to support the channels. I don't actually necessarily want to win this contest. Greyman is very generous for him to be sending people comics, but since he lives in the UK and I'm here in the United States, it would probably cost about $50 million to mail a box of comics. At least that's been my experience recently leaving the US Postal Service. If you're trying to ship to Europe, it's absolutely insane, the prices. So I don't want anyone to have to spend that kind of money. I don't need to win the prize. I just want to do a little video to support them. If you do want to join the contest and get some free comics, that's totally cool. I will say that he was going to be giving out some prizes when Matilda reaches 500 subscribers. I was subscriber 496, so if you want to get in on that, you're going to have to do it really quickly. Now, for his contest, the rules are very simple. He just wanted me to make any kind of video and then tag them in the comment description below, which I've done, but also at the end of the video there's going to be links to both of their channels during the end screen. So if for some reason you haven't figured out how to click the link in the description, it'll pop up on the screen and you can click it like that, like it's like a 3D effect, like it's clicking it right there. So that'll be right at the end. So again, he said any video. Some of the other ones I'm doing this week, people have very specific topics they want. This time he said any video at all. So I thought I'd show off something really interesting and cool that I have here. I'm, a big fan of comics history. I love to read things about comics. I had done a book club video a while ago where I showed off some of the books that I've been reading about comics, but I also love to read magazines and stuff. Now there's Alter Ego. I've got a big collection of Alter Ego. Roy Thomas has all these great interviews with all the classic like artists and writers, and he also does these great features with histories of these people. But something else that's really interesting to me is to get the comic magazines that were coming out at the time, so you can get sort of a slice of life. And there's a lot of cool stuff from the 80s, like Amazing Heroes. You can get these magazines that were coming out, like when Watchmen was coming out, you can read what people were saying about it at the time, that sort of thing. And I think that stuff is really cool. I love doing that and getting those and reading, what these sort of looks at what the comic community was thinking at the time. When you go a little further back into the 70s, there wasn't nearly as much of this. There were some underground and some zines and stuff that were covering it, but for the most part, you also had you kind of had to rely on the companies themselves that were publishing their in-house stuff. So Foom, for instance, from Marvel, has a bunch of really interesting stuff. DC's Amazing World, I used to have like almost a whole set when I was a kid. I got rid of them like a fool, and now they're really hard to sort of get. But they have some really cool stuff. There wasn't nearly as much like mainstream comics journalism, and I say mainstream, but there wasn't that much like big time comics journalism. It was mostly the zines and the in-house publications. But there was one exception that I didn't even know about until I was at an antique shop in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, and they had this. It's called Inside Comics, and they had the first 4 issues. I don't know how long this ran, but their cover date, these are all from 1974. Spring 74, summer 74, fall of 74, and the winter of 74, 75. And they have some fantastic journalism about comics from the heart of the Bronze Age. The cover thing here says exclusive interview with R. Crumb. Again, this is the spring of 1974. And then when you read it here, there's also stuff from the writers and artists at the time where they're doing op-eds. So here's a really cool one. Right up here at the top, it says, Why I'm on Strike Against National by Neil Adams. And this is an article that talks about his issues with them in terms of giving Siegel and Schuster credit and the money they deserve. There's also a thing here that says the Great Comic Art Ripoff, and this is the first where I've really seen, it's an expose about original art and how like hundreds or thousands of pages of original art went missing from DC, where basically it just walked out the door and was then sold off to private collectors. And that's where you see this art now today. Like a lot of the original art that you see on the original art market was stuff that was at DC or Marvel, and someone basically stole it from their archives because the companies didn't care that much, and then sold it sort of on the black market, and it's never been returned. We're going to see this come up again here in the second issue. This is so cool. Issue 2, right here at the top, there's an op-ed by Steve Ditko saying who owns original art. And in this article, Ditko is basically arguing in a very Ditko-esque fashion that the companies paid the artists to draw them, and therefore the art belongs to the companies, that artists don't have a right to get their art back. It belongs to whoever paid for it. And so in terms of artists that were trying to get their original art back, Ditko's very much on the side of the companies there. As you can see, the cover thing here is a conversation with Harvey Kurtzman, where he's talking about his long career at Mad and EC, but also his support of the underground market. This is the third issue. It has a thing here that says The Dirty Dozen, 12 Pros Gripe About Comics. It also says How to Rate Comic Books by C.C. Beck. C.C. Beck, of course, the famous for doing the Marvel Family stuff back in the 40s. He's a regular contributor to this magazine. Every issue has a column by C.C. Beck in it. And this also has a thing called Repression for the Hell of It, the Doonesbury Scandal. The description says, can one comic strip withstand the multiple lynchings being handed out so freely by newspaper bosses? The Sage of Doonesbury reveals the formula for success in an age of fear and repression. It's basically talking about how the groundbreaking Doonesbury comic strip, which had a lot of political content in it, was being censored during Watergate. A lot of really, really just great stuff here. The lead story is called The Dirty Dozen. It's interviews with comic creators about problems in the industry, right? And so, here it is, The Dirty Dozen. It's an expose where these famous creators give their opinions on all the problems in the comic industry, what's right and what's wrong. And it's Jim Steranko, Howard Chaykin, Don McGregor, Esteban Maroto, Al Williamson, trying to read this and show it to you at the same time, which isn't working. Marv Wolfman, Roy Thomas, Gray Morrow, Neil Adams, Jerry Conway, Tony Isabella, and Mike Kaluta. And they all are interviewed about this topic, and they give their thoughts on the state of the comic industry as of the fall of 1974. And then this here, Will Eisner on comics in the library. So he has a column in this. This is the winter 74-75 issue. There's an article in here called The Comics Code, 20 Years of Self-Strangulation. There's a thing about C.C. Beck where the cover story is C.C. Beck reimagining what his Golden Age comics would have looked like if they had been drawn in the Bronze Age style. see the crazy exaggeration and the way he's drawn Mary Marvel and stuff. Obviously, he's not a big fan of the way sort of the Marvel house style is sort of taken over comics at this point. Um, there's one thing here I was trying to find. Oh, the Super Lawsuit is the one that's interesting. Again, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that is again about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster trying to get some recognition for the creation of Superman. So these are just an amazing slice of history from what was happening in the industry. Um, Unlike, it doesn't have the in-house point of view, stuff like Foom would give you, where it's from Marvel's point of view. It also doesn't have from the zines. It's basically the fans' point of view, and then they interview the creators when they can, but it's mostly from the fans' point of view. This is inside baseball. It's what the creators and the critics were thinking about the comics industry at the time the Bronze Age was happening. It's absolutely amazing bit of history. Again, I found these at a little antique shop in Vermont. They were $2 each. I mean, the cover price was $1 at the time in 1974. I don't think this lasted that long, maybe because it was so expensive. And they're not that expensive. If you look them up on eBay, you can get these relatively cheap, but just tremendous. So I just wanted to share that with you. Fantastic reading for any comic historian, just to see this window into the past. And yeah, that's it. So thanks very much for watching. That's it for this video. Again, go and support the Greyman and go and support Matilda Gothica. I am adding their links here to the end screen as requested by the Greyman, and I want to thank the Greyman again for all of his support. Go out and check their channels out, subscribe to them. They have a bunch of interesting, cool, and different content on there, and hope I'll see you again tomorrow, or I'll be doing another video in support of another member of the comics YouTubing community. But until then, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.